Hello! Look right over here at the screen. Let's prepare our hearts to receive God's word. Make sure your body is still and your listening ears are on. Let's say today's bottom line, believe God's promises together on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Believe God's promises. So, what's a promise? A promise is when someone says something will happen or that they will do something. It's a commitment. Most of us have probably made promises, right? Sometimes we have kept them. Other times we didn't. Most of us have had people make promises to us. Sometimes people kept their promise. Other times they didn't. Have any of you ever heard of a pinky promise? Well, a pinky promise is like a handshake with your pinky fingers. When you make a pinky promise, you are making a super strong promise that you really plan on keeping. There are over 3,000 promises in the Bible that God has made to us. All of his promises are like pinky promises. You can believe God's promises will come true. You can count on God. He will never break his promises. Abram was very blessed at this point in his life. He had lots of land and livestock. He had a wife named Sarai, but Abram and Sarai had no children. Abram was worried about who would inherit all of his blessings from God after he died. God told Abram to look at the night sky and count the stars. Then God said, "That's how many children you will have." God had promised Abram a son. Abram's first son was named Ishmael. When Abram was 99 years old, God reaffirmed his promise with him. God told him, "I will make you the father of many nations. Your name will no longer be Abram. It will now be Abraham, which means father of many. Your wife's name will no longer be Sarai. It will now be Sarah." In the Bible, sometimes people's names were changed when they went through a life-changing experience. God promised Abraham another son. Abraham laughed and thought, "How could I have a son? I am 100 years old. How could Sarah have a son when she's 99 years old?" In Genesis chapter 17, verse 19, God said, "Sarah, your wife, will have a son, and you will name him Isaac. I will make my agreement with him. It will be an agreement that continues forever with all his descendants." Sarah overheard this conversation and she laughed because she thought she and Abraham were much too old to have kids. In a normal situation, they were too old, but they were over 100. But God was working a miracle, and the birth of this baby boy Isaac was the beginning of a new chapter in God's plan to save the world. I think it's pretty cool how God told Abraham that the agreement he was making with him and his son would continue forever with all their descendants. God is such a good God. Remember, he loves you and wants a relationship with you. He wants to be your best friend, the person you talk to when you have a good day or a bad day. He is a good father. He looks out for you and watches over you. He keeps his promises, and what he says is true. Remember earlier, I told you there are over 3,000 promises in the Bible. We should always have faith that God will keep his promises and believe in him. Let's say today's bottom line, believe God's promises together on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Believe God's promises. We should always believe God's promises. Talk to you soon.